My brother's shocking joke at my wedding exposed our family's hidden truth after 25 years. Jess stood at the altar, holding Jake's hand, the quaint church filled with warmth, a testament to love and commitment. Yet a storm brewed inside her. As she glanced at her older brother Alex perched on the edge of their pew, she felt the familiar twist of anxiety in her gut. His eccentric humor always had a way of upstaging her moments. Today, on her wedding day, the stakes felt impossibly high. As vows were exchanged, Jess's mind flickered between the joy surrounding her and a nagging worry that had bubbled for years. Would this day, her perfect day, be overshadowed by Alex's need to make everyone laugh? She took a deep breath. The fragrance of lilies filled her senses, but the unease didn't dissipate. Would her ceremony be reduced to mere fodder for Alex's jokes? The question gnawed at her, a whisper that clawed at her heart. What will everyone think? It wasn't just that it was her day. It was an echo of all those times Alex's humor had pierced through their familial facade. The reception unfolded under sparkling fairy lights, laughter overlapping with the melodic strumming of a guitar. Jess clung to her newfound husband, exchanging glances of joy that she wanted to hold on to forever. But the air thickened as Alex stood to deliver his toast. Here's to our dad, who always taught us to laugh, especially at his own mysterious past, he joked, playfully nudging his elbow. Time froze. Jess's smile faded as the laughter around her twisted into something jagged. The mood slipped, conversations halted, and Jess felt every eye draw towards her, pinning her down like a spotlight. Her heart raced. Somehow, in that moment, Alex's innocent dig carved into the intricate tapestry of lies that defined their family. The truth about their father's past, a truth that had been skillfully ignored and tucked away, now hung heavy in the room. Jess's mind spiraled, a childhood spent avoiding their father's demanding eyes. The fear of being judged, of losing love, clawed its way back into her chest, battling against the love that surrounded her now. This is not how love is. This is not how family should be, she wrestled with that thought. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Stepping outside into the cool night air, Jess struggled with the realization of how Alex's joke had unspooled years of family tension. It exposed cracks that had been carefully painted over with laughter and denial. Clenching her fists, she replayed their shared history, a history riddled with expectations and rivalry. With a fire brewing inside her, she knew she had to confront her brother. You think it's funny to expose Dad like that? Do you even care what it means? The words escaped her, cutting through the air like a knife. The argument escalated, a torrent of years' worth of unspoken grievances spilling over. Breathless in their exchange, Jess felt the weight of her childhood hang like a shroud. Then, something deep within her stirred, an obsession with hidden truths she'd never dared to embrace. It surged forward with an urgency she couldn't ignore. A box of letters had been waiting for her back home, a family album she had pushed aside. What if those letters revealed more than she could imagine, tearing apart everything she thought she understood? Just as Jess resolved to dive into that collection of secrets, a sudden knock on the door echoed through her mind. Who could be there? The sound reverberated, ground zero for a truth that might reconfigure her family, remit the foundation of everything she believed about loyalty and identity. Her heart raced in anticipation, the undercurrent of fear tinged with exhilaration. What awaited her behind that door would determine not only the course of her marriage, but unravel the very fabric of their family's history. Jess stood alone in the quiet of the night, heart pounding as she stared at the door that seemed to loom larger than the shadows around it. The weight of Alex's joke lingered in her mind, morphing into a palpable anxiety that threatened to burst through her carefully maintained composure. That joke had been the crack in the facade. Now everything felt unstable. She needed time to think, to gather her thoughts before engaging with her brother again. But the memory of their childhood flashed before her, laughter interwoven with veiled truths, happiness punctuated by moments of bitterness. A flicker of determination ignited inside her. If this was the moment she was meant to confront them, both her brother and the buried history, she had to be prepared. Making her way to the car, Jess's mind raced, pooling her thoughts into one objective: discover what the letters contained. The collection was far more than old papers. It was a window into the untold stories of her family. It could be the key to understanding their father, their past, and ultimately her own path forward. She had always felt like a mere background character in her family's narrative. Now, it was time to rewrite that story, taking center stage. The drive back home felt like a pilgrimage through her memories, each mile a step closer to unearthing buried feelings. She parked in the driveway, heart racing as she stepped inside. The house was silent, wrapped in darkness, the flicker of the streetlight casting long shadows across the floorboards. Her fingertips grazed the edges of the coffee table, searching for the familiar texture of the box she'd tucked away months ago. Once she found it, sitting innocently, Jess clutched it to her chest, feeling the weight of years of silence pressing down upon her. The letters. She could sense their significance radiating from the cardboard container. As she settled at the dining room table and pried open the box, an exhilarating rush of fear and excitement wrapped around her. Unfolding the first paper, she caught sight of her father's scrawled handwriting. It felt like a direct link to the past, connecting her to emotions she had long avoided. With each letter she read, a swirling mix of love, betrayal, and sorrow washed over her. Gradually, pieces began to fit together. A narrative of secrets emerged, revealing the vulnerabilities and trials that had shaped her father, the man who had often seemed so distant. It struck her that she had spent years painting him with a brush of disdain without truly understanding the complexity of his life, the burdens he had carried. Jess paused to let the revelations sink in. Each word drew her closer to a framework of understanding that transcended the surface chaos of Alex's laughter and their father's past. She realized this was not merely about addressing her brother's joke. It was about confronting the accountability of family dynamics and how they had molded her perceptions. A newfound clarity settled upon her. She was ready to step into her own truth. With determination, Jess set aside the letters for a moment, turning her thoughts to how she could address Alex. There was an urgency to not just confront him, but to reshape their relationship, to break the cycle that allowed humor to overshadow essential truths. He needed to understand the impact of his words, not just on her, but on their father's legacy. Her thoughts crystallized around one critical question: how could she best communicate this without succumbing to the chaos of anger? The night felt filled with potential as she cataloged her emotions, aiming for clarity instead of conflict. There was still much to unravel, yet she felt an exhilarating empowerment with every letter read, reaffirming that she would not be just a passive observer in her family's story anymore. She took a deep breath and picked up her phone, ready to reach out to Alex. It was time for clarity, time to dismantle the mask that had hung so fragile over their family for too long. Yet, as she began to type, the doorbell rang again, breaking her concentration. Jess froze, staring at the door in uncertainty. Who could it be this late? Her heart began to race anew. With a sense of foreboding mixed with curiosity, she stepped toward the door, ready to confront whatever lay beyond it. Would it be the chance for deeper revelations, or perhaps another layer in the complex story of their family? Jess steadied her breath, gripping the doorknob as though it were a lifeline. The night air outside felt thick with tension, enshrouding her in a wall of uncertainty. She had prepared herself to confront her brother after her revelation from the letters, but now a layer of fear and curiosity mingled with her resolve. Opening the door, she found not Alex, but a figure she hadn't expected, her aunt, Marie. The older woman's usually warm expression was marked by concern. "Jess, I hope I'm not bothering you," she began, her voice softer than usual, laced with unspoken urgency. "No, it's fine," Jess replied, surprised by the tension in her own tone. Without waiting for an invitation, Marie stepped inside, closing the door behind her as though sealing out the chaos of the world. The two shared a moment of silence, the air thick with unacknowledged feelings. "How is Alex?" Marie asked, shifting uncomfortably. "Just fine," Jess said, feeling the truth already twisting within her. He made a joke that stirred something up inside me." The words pressed out like a confession. Marie's gaze sharpened, and Jess could see the flicker of recognition at the mention of the joke. "We've all been affected by our family's humor, haven't we?" Jess cautiously nodded. Marie's presence felt both comforting and unsettling, exposing a vulnerability she hadn't anticipated sharing. "I've been reading the letters from Dad. I finally feel like I'm starting to understand him. And us." Aunt Marie took a deep breath, her posture shifting from casual to attentive. "Those letters were never meant to be hidden. They hold truths about family legacy, our dysfunctions. I always believed you'd find the courage to confront them." Jess sensed a veiled meaning in her words, a call for her to dig deeper. "What do you mean?" "Your father had his secrets," Marie started hesitantly. "But so do we. Each generation is responsible for facing their truth, for untangling the narratives we live by. For some, it's painful. For others, liberating." Jess felt the weight of those words settle heavily on her. "So, the letters are a tool for understanding, but they're also a revelation of our current selves. I have to confront Alex about not just the joke, but about the patterns that govern our conversations." Marie nodded, her expression solemn. "Breaking the cycle isn't easy, Jess. Similar dynamics pushed me into silence for years." With those words, Jess realized her journey was not just about confronting Alex. It was about owning her voice and agency within her family's narrative. For the first time, she felt a powerful sense of control over her story instead of being swept along by the current of familial expectations. The act of confronting Alex would not be a mere reaction. It would be a deliberate strategy aimed at fostering an authentic dialogue. As an idea began to take shape in her mind, Jess met Marie's gaze, her path forward crystallizing. "I need to approach this carefully. I can't let anger take over. I need to articulate my truth without destroying our bond." Marie offered her a supportive smile. "You have the strength to express your feelings, to forge a new connection." Jess took a moment to savor that affirmation, feeling her pulse steady. "Thank you. I have to face this with clarity." Just as Marie opened her mouth to reply, a cacophony of laughter erupted from outside. Distractions seeped in, drawing Jess's focus momentarily away from the conversation. But in that moment, a new wave of determination rose within her. She realized that the laughter wasn't just a casual interruption. It was a reminder of the implications of their family's narrative. "I can't delay this confrontation any longer," she declared suddenly, fueled by an urgency that ignited within her. Marie reached out, placing a calming hand on her arm, cautioning her despite the excitement swirling in the air. "Just remember, it's not just what you say, it's how you listen," Marie advised gently. The echo of those words sparked a final flicker of doubt. Each moment mattered. She had to be prepared for the truth, for the synergy of emotions that faced her. Would Alex be receptive? Would the conversation unveil deeper wounds? Jess's stomach twisted in anticipation, but with a steadying breath, she squared her shoulders. It was time to engage in the truth of her family. As she moved toward the door, ready to seek out the laughter and face her brother, Jess knew that whatever lay ahead, it was a step toward reclaiming her story. Stepping outside, she hesitated, both terrified and exhilarated, realizing that this wasn't just about confronting the past. It was about charting her future. But just as she coaxed herself into movement, a shadow shifted behind her, and a sudden rustle in the bushes sent a chill creeping down her spine. Curious eyes, perhaps more than just laughter, awaited her. What was lurking just out of sight? Jess paused, a fresh wave of uncertainty crashing over her. The sudden rustle in the bushes made Jess freeze. The laughter from the gathering waned, replaced by a palpable tension in the air. She turned slowly, her heart racing, aware that hesitation could render her equally vulnerable and exposed. What had initially felt like a simple confrontation with Alex now bore the weight of uncharted territory, both terrifying and exhilarating. "Jess," a voice from the shadows called softly. It was Alex. He stepped out, a grin plastered on his face, but it was half-hearted, as if he sensed the seriousness in the air. "What are you doing?" she asked, annoyance creeping into her tone, masking her nerves. "I was just enjoying the night." Alex shrugged, but there was a glimmer in his eyes that suggested he was more aware than he let on. Higher stakes loomed, and Jess felt a profound shift within her. This was not merely about confronting a joke or a single remark. It was about initiating a dialogue that could unravel years of tension. The letters had opened a door, but standing before her now was the opportunity to reshape their entire relationship. "Alex," she said, her voice steady but low, "we need to talk. About everything." His expression faltered around the edges, the laughter of their family fading into an echo as they stood in the tension of the unspoken. For a moment, they shared a charged silence, the weight of their unprocessed history framing their connection. "What's going on?" Alex asked, an edge creeping into his voice. Jess took a breath, collecting her thoughts like pieces of a fragile puzzle. There was an instinct to shield herself, to protect the narrative she had constructed around her feelings, but vulnerability had to take precedence. "Remember the joke you made the other night? Come on, it was just a joke, Jess. You can't be serious." His tone turned defensive, foreshadowing an avalanche of familiar arguments. "Yes, I can," Jess shot back, realizing she was facing more than just her brother's flippant dismissal. She was confronting years of avoidance, family humor that walked the line between jest and insensitivity. "You think it's harmless, but it digs into real issues we've buried. I'm tired of pretending our family dynamics are okay. It's time I stop ignoring the truth." A slight shift occurred. Alex shifted his weight, his facade cracking under the weight of her words. "What do you mean by the truth?" He narrowed his eyes, curiosity and apprehension battling for supremacy. "The letters. I've been reading Dad's letters. There's so much he left unsaid, but the humor veiled away the reality of what we lived. It's like we've crafted this narrative where we just laugh things off, but we both know that beneath it, there's pain," she articulated, feeling a rush of adrenaline surge as if they were deep in a battle for clarity. The confrontation unfurled organically, like a series of unexpected tides. Jess was met with silence, his eyes scanning her face, processing her revelations. "You think that's what it is?" he finally replied, the humor in his voice replaced by a somber weight. "I thought we were just keeping things light." "Lightness can't negate what's broken, Alex. We can't keep laughing while neglecting the truth. It's not helping either of us." "I didn't know you felt that way," he whispered, a crack forming in his armor. Suddenly, it felt like she was not just talking to her brother, but to the collective past. A past littered with unexamined trauma disguised as humor. Jess took a step closer, emboldened by the shift in the air. "Then let's talk about it. For real, no jokes this time." Alex's expression turned earnest, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability that made Jess's heart race. The moment stretched, both thrilling and perilous. She had initiated a conversation that would define not only their relationship, but how they would redefine their family legacy. As she contemplated the revealing path ahead, A familiar chill crept back through her, but this time it was electrifying. The stakes had escalated beyond a mere revelation. It felt like the catalyst for deeper exploration into both their psyches. Just then, a nearby light flickered, illuminating their shadows in an undulating dance, and Jess realized they stood on the precipice. The action they were about to take would either fortify their bond or fracture it irreparably. But before she could form another thought, another wave of laughter erupted nearby, a stark reminder of the family orbiting around them. Jess glanced past Alex's shoulder, suddenly aware of the laughter as an impending intrusion into their burgeoning conversation. Time felt ambiguous, stretching into a tightrope. This was just the beginning of the deeper excavation she needed to embark upon. Could they confront the laughter that masked their pain and turn it into dialogue instead? And as she held his gaze steady, Jess felt the pulse of uncertainty, of potential confrontation waiting to unfurl. Would they dare to reconcile their past, or would the laughter drown out their voices once again? The pathway to emotional liberation loomed just ahead, begging to be explored. The laughter from the gathering was like an echo from a distant world, one that felt increasingly foreign to Jess. She sensed a wave of solitude crashing over her as she caught the flicker in Alex's eyes, a fleeting promise that he could meet her halfway. Yet the intrusive laughter reminded her that vulnerability often felt uncomfortable, especially when the facade of humor masked deeper truths. "Okay then, what exactly do we need to say?" Alex challenged, his defensive posture shifting slightly, inviting her to take the lead. Jess felt the room, their long-standing comfort zone, shrink around them, leaving only the raw, unadulterated tension between siblings who had avoided confrontation for too long. "You asked if it was just a joke," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if it's not? What if it's us deciding to hide behind laughter instead of facing who we are?" He hesitated. "Sometimes that's just how we cope. Isn't it easier?" Easier isn't the same as better. Jess felt a surge of conviction. For years, she had played the role of the good daughter, the one who laughed along under the pretense that everything was fine. But now, she could see the cracks in that carefully constructed persona. She had to dismantle it. "I can't keep doing this. We can't just laugh away what happened with Dad. It's exhausting." The admission hung in the air like a suspended breath. Jess could sense Alex processing her words. She felt a rare vulnerability, a plea for understanding. Yet even within that, uncertainty loomed. She was confronting him, but what if he fought back? "Look, Jess," he began, softening slightly, the defiance in his voice woven with resignation. "I get that it's more complicated than jokes, I do. But what can we really do about it? We can't change the past." "Maybe not," she responded critically, suppressing an urge to glance away as the enormity of the moment bore down on her. "But we can decide how we want our future to be. How long are we going to let our father's choices define us?" The intensity of their exchange sliced through the jovial atmosphere, making everything else fade into insignificance. Her heart raced as she leaned further into the challenge, eyes locked on Alex's. She needed him to meet her at this juncture of realization, to see the pathway they might forge together. "What do you even mean by that?" he pressed, confusion swirling in his features. "I mean, we can't let his legacy be just a punchline. He had a life filled with struggles and decisions that mattered, a whole story that was more than comic relief. Shouldn't we explore that instead of pretending it didn't influence us?" Her challenge rang true, not just in the clashing words, but in the glimmer of awareness that overshadowed the humor. Moments passed where only their silent exchanges filled the space, both feeling the weight of generations of obfuscation and avoidance. He began, and Jess could see the flicker of realization tightening his jaw. Maybe there's something there. But what if it hurts too much? Her heart thudded loudly, emboldened by his admission. "Think about what it has already done to us, the laughter, Those walls we built, how long will we keep them up? When do we stop pretending? As Alex's brows knitted into contemplation, Jess felt the energy shift, that electric current of possibility sparking in the air, an uncharted territory promising discovery. This was a transformative moment, but its outcome remained uncertain. "Okay, I'm listening," he finally said, the fight leaving the corners of his mouth along with its previous levity. She drew a breath, resolute. "Let's lose the bravado. Let's dig deeper and see what we unearth. I don't know how this will change things, but we can't ignore it anymore. And if it means wading through the mess, then let's do it. Together." Just as Alex nodded, the laughter from the gathering erupted again, plunging back into their world of levity. Jess felt an acute sense of foreboding. It reminded her how close they were to a precipice. Would they step away from the laughter or be swallowed by it, forever confined to an existence devoid of honesty? With an overwhelming rush of determination, Jess anchored herself in the moment. "I won't be afraid anymore," she said resolutely, swearing to herself that this would mark the turning point in her life. "What if," Alex started, anxiety creeping back into his voice, "what if this changes everything?" The question loomed heavily. The possibility that their past could be rewritten into something profound was terrifying but oddly liberating. "I guess we'll find out," Jess replied, feeling a flicker of hope mixed with fear. But as the laughter surged around them, Jess was haunted by a gnawing doubt. Would they seize this moment for transformation, or would the echoes of comic relief drown their voices once again? And just like that, the very fabric of their familial bond was tinged with uncertainty. The path to honesty was fraught with peril, but perhaps it might lead them closer than ever before, or drive them apart irreversibly. Yet they had taken the first step, and that was more than they had done before. The stakes were high, but as they stood on the threshold of a transformative journey, Jess realized this was just the beginning. What would follow was a confrontation not just with their past, but with the realities of who they were, together and apart, and what they could become. The layers of family history awaited them, shrouded in complexity, but ripe for revelation. Could they unravel it, even if the truths were inconvenient? The laughter continued, but its ringing quality began to lose its luster for Jess. Every chuckle, every playful jab directed at her father felt like a dagger aimed at the walls she had so carefully built. She studied Alex's face as he remained rooted in contemplation. The moment had birthed questions, and she could feel the weight of their shared history pressing on both of them. "Let's start with what you remember," she said, her voice firm yet soft, as though encouraging a partner on the precipice of a daring leap. "What do you recall about Dad that we haven't discussed? The real things, not the jokes." He shifted under her gaze, but she held it steady, letting the silence stretch to fill the space. "Most of it's a blur," he admitted finally, rubbing his neck in anxious reflection. "All I really remember is him not being around, and when he was, it was chaotic," Jess offered. "Yeah, that's a good word for it." His fingers drummed against his thigh, a subconscious attempt to find comfort in a frantic moment. Memories surged behind his eyes, a mixture of affection and disdain. But the little things? The moments when he was actually present? They weren't much, just flashes of fun before it all fell apart. Jess felt her pulse quicken. So why let that define us? The way Alex narrowed his eyes at her was less a challenge now than genuine inquiry. "What do you want from this conversation?" "I want to know him. And us. I want to find the truth buried under our laughter. If we're going to dissolve the walls, we have to confront what we've been hiding from." She watched his expression shift as he weighed her words, deliberating in silence like someone considering a dangerous business deal. What if it hurts more to dive in than to stay on the surface? Jess took a breath, searching her heart for courage. But what if it doesn't? What if we discover strength we didn't know we had? She could see it, the glimmer of fear beginning to mix with curiosity. He had always been the reluctant one, so snugly wrapped in protective bitterness. Jess's own evolution felt like an unprecedented risk, but standing on this precipice together, she sensed the possibility of creating something more profound than laughter could provide. "Okay, let's do it then," Alex said, although a shadow of apprehension still lingered in his tone. "But where do we even start?" "Start at the good moments," she proposed, her excitement solidifying into determination. "Those memories when he was lighter, before his demons took over. We'll piece together the fragments." Jess slipped into her mind's eye, recollecting the infrequent moments she had shared with her father. The time he'd taken them to the lake, their faces splashed with sunshine, his laughter infectious. She could almost see the spark that existed beneath the surface, buried but not extinguished. "Okay, I remember him at the lake," she began, voice trembling with nostalgia. "He taught us how to skip stones. I thought he was the coolest." Alex's smile was fleeting but genuine. "I remember that. He caught the biggest fish. He got so excited when he pulled it in. And proud of it. It felt like he could conquer the world," Jess interjected, a wave of warmth washing over her. "That's the dad I want to honor." Silence descended, but this time it felt less constricted, more meaningful, as if their walls were beginning to fade. They were building an honest foundation, invoking what had been locked away all these years. "Do you think we could somehow share this piece of him with the family?" Alex asked tentatively. "Yes," she replied, conviction flaring. "We need them to see that he was more than a punchline. We owe it to his memory. Not only that—" Alex interrupted her with a sudden realization, his eyes widening. "It's like we're reshaping our narrative, rewriting what family means to us, with truth, not just fun." That spark, once ignited, set Jess aflame. Her heart raced as possibilities unfurled in her mind. "Exactly," she murmured, her voice no longer overshadowed by doubt. A flicker of power coursed through her. "We'll redefine what it means to move on, not just within ourselves, but as a family." But as Jess leaned into this newfound purpose, a chilling realization took root. What if the truths they uncovered complicated the laughter, making reconciliation harder than she envisioned? The thought cut through her resolve, a trepidation thickening the air. Navigating the waters of their family dynamics would require more than courage. It would take resilience to face uncertainties. But Jess was ready to tread into unknown depths, for the promise of self-discovery outshone her reservations. "So how do we actually do this?" Alex's voice brought her back to focus, grounded but curious, his eagerness now sparked with a hint of fear. "I guess it starts with each of our own stories," Jess replied, a steely resolve taking root within her. "We share, and then we confront, but prepare for the unexpected. We might find revelations that change everything." As she spoke, uncertainty flickered again in her heart. The winds of transformation were stirring, but did she have the strength to face the storms they might unleash? And with that question hanging heavily between them, Jess felt the electric flip of possibility churning inside her. The true journey had just begun, but its destination remained shrouded in uncertainty. Could they emerge stronger and united, or would they unravel in the effort to untangle a painful legacy? Jess sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by a chaotic array of photographs and notes. The dim light illuminated the corners of the room, casting shadows that mirrored her growing anxiety. Each image was a fragment of the past, a shard stuck between two versions of her family, the one she wanted to remember and the one haunted by silence. "Let's figure out where to start," she said, directing her attention to Alex, who remained leaning against the wall, arms crossed and eyes narrowed, his body language an echo of his uncertainty. "This feels like opening a wound," he admitted, his voice flat, as if he was parsing through the weight of every word. Jess recognized the familiar protective armory he put on when faced with discomfort. She wished she could break through it, but not with force. Instead, she knew she had to build a bridge. "That's part of the process," Jess replied, a resolve growing in her tone. "If we don't expose the wound, it'll never heal." She slid a photograph toward him, a candid moment captured at the lake where their father had caught that big fish, smiles radiating innocence and joy. "Remember this? It was just us, and it felt real." "I remember," Alex said quietly, as his guarded eyes softened momentarily. "But that was a long time ago. I guess I just wonder if we're ready to confront everything else." Her heart raced. She understood why that question hung heavy. It was a crucial fork in the road. "We are," she insisted, her voice shaking with conviction. "Every layer we peel back brings us closer to who we are now and who we can be as a family. If we want to reshape our narrative, we can't omit the hard parts." Alex hesitated, his fingers tracing the edges of the photo. She watched as he wrestled with thoughts, silently urging him to take a leap of faith alongside her. There was a spark in him, deep down, that longed to connect. "Okay then," he finally relented, his tone wavering. "But how do we approach the others? What if this disrupts the balance we've maintained? What if it backfires?" "Disruption can lead to clarity," Jess said, feeling her own resolve deepen. "We have to trust this process, even if it feels scary. Our family deserves to know the full story, the truth buried beneath the jokes and smiles." As she spoke, an idea began to take shape. "Let's host a family gathering, an honest one, where we share our memories about Dad. We can guide the conversation to where it needs to go." "But what if they aren't ready?" he countered, forehead creasing. "What if they are?" Jess challenged, a flicker of excitement igniting within her. "This is about breaking free from the punchline we've become. We pave the way, we initiate the discussion. It's up to them to follow." That metaphorical wind began to lift Jess. This was a chance not only to wrestle with the past, but to claim their future. It could redefine not just their family narrative, but who they were as individuals. "Maybe we can identify what kept us from fully connecting," he murmured, contemplatively. "What hasn't been said? What's been hidden?" Jess nodded vigorously. "Yes, we can share the joyful moments alongside the struggles, like a tapestry weaving our truths together. It's time to form a complete picture, one where Dad isn't just a punchline, but a nuanced person." As she spoke, Jess realized they were already stepping into a formidable territory of revelation. She had always considered herself the reconciler, yet this was the ultimate test. Would they find unity in truth, or fracture under the weight of it? "We'll make it happen," Jess declared, a firm line defining her mouth. "But we need to prepare ourselves for the reactions. Not everyone may handle these truths well." "I get that," Alex replied, pushing himself off the wall, determination emerging. "But let's not hold back. No more glossing over. This is our shot to honor Dad fully." He extended his hand, and Jess clasped it tightly, reflecting their united front. Yet, as the idea solidified, an unsettling sensation prickled at the back of her mind. Could the truths they revealed challenge her to confront her own carefully guarded feelings? And in doing so, was she prepared to face the reality of her father's choices, decisions that impacted every thread of her being? The very thought sent a shiver through her. "We'll plan it out," she said, infusing her voice with confidence, even as shards of doubt nipped at her resolve. "But let's give it the time and thought it deserves. We'll gather everyone together, and when we do, we will be ready." With the evening carrying a palpable tension, Jess felt a surge of purpose. She wasn't just digging into the past. She was on the cusp of a revelation that might change everything. And as they began to draft their ideas, she realized the real challenge was weeks away. A confrontation awaited, one that could either heal or irrevocably shatter the fragile threads tying their family together. "Let's do this," she breathed, determination burning bright. But a shiver of uncertainty slid through her. Was she truly equipped to navigate the fallout that awaited? Jess spent the next few days immersed in a whirlwind of planning. Each hour was lost in lists of potential guests, prompts for discussion, and the delicate framework of emotions that might surface. She filled notebooks with ideas, her handwriting becoming frantic as she jotted down every thought that crossed her mind. Yet amid all the organization, an unsettling question pressed upon her. Could she truly facilitate this gathering? The notion gnawed at her. She felt simultaneously the pull of ambition and the push of fear. There was a weighty sense she had never felt before, an internal struggle that mirrored the tension buzzing in the house. Sitting at her desk on a Friday night, she stared at a wall plastered with photos, memories flickering like faded film. Each one represented a version of their family, and she found herself fixated on the fractured image of their father. The interesting man in the photographs cast a long shadow of myths and misunderstandings, leaving very little room for the complexity of actual relationships. This must be balanced, she muttered to herself. Not just his legacy, but ours too. This realization struck her. If they were going to unravel their history, they also needed to confront their roles in it. An idea took root. What if she wrote small letters to each family member? A way to coax them into opening up long before the gathering, to plant the seeds of contemplation. She believed it might ease the plunge into self-reflection during the meeting. She began drafting a letter, her heart racing with the implications of her words. Jess aimed to frame it not just as an invitation, but a catalyst. "Dear family," she began, "I've been thinking a lot about our past, about Dad, and about us. I believe it's time we truly share what we remember, what we feel." Each line unfurled deeper connections she hoped to forge. As she typed, the emotional labor took its toll, and doubts weaved through her thoughts. Would they even care to engage? Would they reject the idea outright? Would they confront the truths that had shackled them for too long? The weekend approached, yet it felt like an eternity. As she sent out the letters, a calm began to creep over her, an assurance that she was steering toward something significant. She reminded herself that it was not a matter of changing the world, but rather their little corner of it. Each respondent could either embrace vulnerability or slip back into evasion. At least she was initiating the call for authenticity. Then came the hesitant replies. Some were enthusiastic, others shaky. A few offered silence, which Jess tried not to take personally. The range of responses equipped her with insight into their different states of readiness or unwillingness to voice feelings. But more than that, the answers provided fertile ground for her to consider what each person sought or feared. As Jess prepared their home for the gathering, she selected particular dishes that reminded her of family dinners long past. Comfort food served as an anchor, a reminder of unity before the shadows of secrecy clouded their bonds. In the kitchen, she felt a flicker of nostalgia, yet it swelled with apprehension. These meals could signal shared warmth or cut deeper by triggering vivid memories of what had been lost. "Am I doing this for us or for him?" she whispered into the quiet room, wondering if the looming confrontation would validate her father or unveil new truths of his failings that risked unearthing resentments. The day of the gathering dawned, and Jess found herself standing in front of the mirror, staring into her own eyes. "No more masks," she murmured, knowing that her own vulnerability could inspire others to shed theirs. As the first guests started to arrive, Jess felt both exhilaration and dread coiling in her stomach. The room filled with laughter, chatter, and a subtle tension that seemed ready to explode. Before she could think twice about her decision, she called everyone to gather. "Thank you for coming. Today I want us to step beyond the punchline and into the realities we haven't spoken about," she began, her voice steady but edged with fear. She glanced around the room, searching for Alex. His look of mixed support and concern was a reminder that this was not just about their father, but about confronting the entire structure of who they were as a family. And at that moment, As the weight of her words hung in the air, Jess found herself wondering, were they truly ready for the truth, and what would unravel when they dared to confront their past? As Jess stood there, surrounded by faces that mirrored her own anxiety, she felt the empty space between the collective laughter and unspoken words thrum with possibility. Her heart raced. She was teetering on a precipice of change, each moment more significant than the last. It was time to peel back the layers of their history, one small piece at a time. "Let's begin with memories of Dad," she proposed, trying to project calmness. "What comes to your mind when you think of him?" It was a simple invitation, but the air thickened with anticipation. Jess watched her siblings' expressions shift. Curiosity mingled with trepidation. Her brother David, usually the jokester, appeared momentarily caught off guard. Silence enveloped him like a shroud. Then, reluctantly, he began to speak. He was, well, complicated, funny sometimes, but never really there for us, was he? The words fell like stones in a still pond, rippling outward. Jess's stomach tightened. Was this emotional honesty a breach of their unspoken family agreement to remain on the surface? Yet she saw value in David's vulnerability, a flicker of hope igniting deep within her. This was it. They needed to confront the unseen fractures, the underlying fears each one bore. "Complicated is a good word," Jess interjected, hopeful to continue the momentum. "He had a big personality, but I think we all missed the opportunity to connect with him." Her sister Olivia shifted in her seat, glaring at Jess momentarily before looking down at her hands. "It wasn't just him. We all played a part in that distance, didn't we? I was terrified of making him angry, so I just learned to stay silent." There was an honesty in Olivia's admission that felt raw yet necessary, a step out into the light that Jess encouraged. "Yes," Jess replied, fueled by Olivia's brave honesty. "This is what we need. To unpack those feelings, to not walk around them anymore." A gentle exchange of words bloomed, a questioning of themselves that would otherwise have been nearly impossible. The discussions shifted from stories of their father, weaving through memories of childhood, laughter, and unspoken resentment. Each revelation was like unchaining a weight that had weighed heavily upon them all. They spoke in fragments, opening doors they'd previously kept locked. Jess actively embraced her role not just as a facilitator, but as an emotional anchor, creating safe space. As they navigated the complexity of their shared experiences, the tension morphed into familiarity. But then, as the air grew thick with unmasked truth, an unexpected moment of vulnerability came from Alex. "Jess, I've noticed how this impacts you. You've been carrying a heavy load for all of us." His voice held a blend of admiration and concern, prompting heads to turn. Jess felt the heat rise in her face as embarrassment battled gratitude. "I just want us to confront our reality together," she said, wary of her voice revealing too much ardor. "I'm tired of the facade, and I think you all are too." The room simmered with mixed feelings, recognition, appreciation, and a hint of shame lingering like an unwelcome guest. Now they were vulnerable before one another. Would everyone reciprocate? Would they lean fully into this moment of reckoning? Then the door opened, bringing in the cool evening air, and their older cousin, Margaret. She stood at the threshold, surprise etched on her face, her eyes darting from one sibling to another. The sense of collective unity cracked under the impact of her entrance, and Jess felt a wave of apprehension wash over her. In her instinct, Jess sensed that Margaret's opinion could sway the family dynamic. Once a confidant, now a distant figure, her presence brought both old memories and unaddressed grievances. "Are you really doing this?" Margaret questioned, her voice tinged with disbelief. The room fell silent, all eyes darting between Jess and Margaret. An unsettling energy thrummed in the air, revitalizing the undercurrents that had always lurked beneath the surface. Jess clenched her fists, grappling with how to navigate this unexpected confrontation. It wasn't merely about their father anymore. Everything was on the table. The truths, the misconceptions, and the long-held beliefs they had built their lives around. Jess felt the urgency to confront all that, especially in front of someone who represented both family loyalty and an unyielding boundary. Was she ready to tackle this new layer of confrontation? The room held its breath alongside Jess, and the question echoed in her mind. Could they weather another storm, or would this be the moment when everything tipped over the edge into chaos? Jess inhaled deeply, centering herself amidst the tension created by Margaret's unexpected entrance. The room's atmosphere shifted, morphing from a space of gradual enlightenment into one pulsing with unspoken reservations. Yet the moment felt crucial. It was an invitation to deepen the vulnerability they had begun to cultivate. "Margaret," Jess began, her voice steady, despite the swarm of nerves in her stomach. "Yes, we are doing this, confronting the truth about our dad and our family. We're choosing to open up about what this has meant for all of us." Margaret crossed her arms defensively, her skeptical gaze lingering on Jess. "Do you think that's wise? Bringing up old wounds? What if it drives us apart?" The inquiry hung heavy in the air, and Jess could see Alex shift, uncertainty flickering across his features. Yet, her resolve felt anchored. "I understand the fear, but hiding from the truth has only created deeper rifts. We're navigating this together to honor our experiences, not just his laughter, but our pain, anger, and love." An unexpected flicker of understanding crossed Margaret's face, but she remained guarded. And what if those experiences shatter the image we've been trying so hard to maintain? "Maybe it's time we realize that enduring sunny images can be deceptive," Jess asserted, her conviction solidifying into a firm stand. "This isn't merely about our father's past. It's about our narratives as individuals, employees, siblings. Responding to years of avoidance won't erase the laughter, but rather distribute the weight that's been pulled taut for too long." David broke in, his eyes alight with energy. "Margaret, think about it. We could finally free ourselves from how Dad has overshadowed our relationships. These truths might make us closer instead of pulling us apart." A charged silence hung in the space, collective breaths being taken, and Jess sensed the walls slowly cracking. Each person was wrestling with their own hesitation, yet something profound ignited within them. If they allowed honesty to enter through the cracks, perhaps the family could redefine its essence entirely. With the room's focus coalescing around her, Jess's heart raced with the prospect that this was a turning point. We can't make real progress unless we face everything: our pain, our stories, our peculiar journeys to understanding love and laughter. We are not just reflections of our Father, we are polyphonic voices in our own right. In that moment of clarity, something shifted. Jess locked eyes with Alex, recognizing a partnership forming. It was the realization that they could explore their individual paths while wielding collective strength. She could feel the hesitance begin to falter as their shared history morphed from a source of conflict into a conduit for unity. Margaret finally stepped into the room, her posture relaxing just slightly. Maybe you all have a point. I've grown tired of the heaviness too," she admitted, the fight softening her words. If she was brave enough to step closer, it might open the door for others. A subtle connection bubbled within Jess. "Let's lean into those feelings," she said, her voice emboldened by their shifting company. "Let's uncover the tension so we won't remain shackled to our family's narrative. This awakening could be the catalyst for a new legacy." As Jess reflected on the powerful strides they were making, she felt a sense of purpose lifting the heaviness in her shoulders. It was more than just confronting their father's past. It was about blossoming fully into who they needed to be. As Margaret nodded, Jess recognized the ripple throughout the room. It became palpable. Threads of vulnerability intertwining in a way that felt now both monumental and necessary. A choice to step into emotional wholeness. Your mother used to say, "Life is too short to stay silent," Margaret said. "Maybe it's time we heed that advice." With that, Jess's heart began to thrum with hope. They were no longer just a family of laughter on the surface, but a congregation of powerful individuals ready to explore their truths. It felt liberating to unveil the depth of their shared history, knowing they could pave the way for healing through courage and compassion. The room fell into a quieter cadence, and the questions began. Where had laughter masked pain? What balance lay between joviality and the complexity of their emotions? Each member of the family turned toward the discussion, unwinding the tightly knotted threads surrounding their relationships. As they spoke, laughter mingled with the serious tones of conversation, a reminder of the complexities and joys that existed side by side. Tears and laughter, revelations and thought, this had become sacred space. Later that evening, as the gathering transitioned into shared stories threaded with unbearable truths, Jess felt herself transform. They were crafting something profound, struggling, yet succeeding at weaving their individual experiences into a tapestry of acceptance. This was no longer just about reconciling their father's legacy. It was about rediscovering their own stories. In this unfolding moment, Jess realized she had emerged as a voice of change and healing. She was redefining not only her familial narrative, but ensuring that their legacy was rooted in authenticity. As the night drew to a close, Jess felt an irrepressible gratitude surface. She had accomplished something unexpected, creating a dialogue that illuminated buried pain while celebrating familial bonds. They were no longer shadows of a man. They were identities brimming with depth and richness. In that moment, Jess found solid confidence, not just in the family she shared, but in the person she had become. Now was the time to share this experience with the world. You need to subscribe now to witness more stories of personal transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share this essence of overcoming together with at least 5 friends who should see this conclusion. Leave a like now to help the algorithm and comment your insights about Jess's journey. Every action counts, and only true fans of resilient narratives understand their significance. Support the channel and be part of this journey.